was in school and my teacher would say, "Okay, boys and girls, take out your math books, it's time for math," I would say, "Ugh, why do I need to know math skills?" But as it turns out, I use math skills every day. When I'm cooking a recipe for dinner, I use math to measure my ingredients. And when I'm knitting a blanket, I use math to figure out how many stitches I'll need to make my blanket. When I go to the grocery store, I use math to figure out how much my groceries will cost and whether or not I'll have enough money. We're talking about thinking like a scientist. Now, another part of thinking like a scientist is using math skills to collect data, which is what you're going to do when you make your ramp and your rover project. Now, one of the math skills you'll use is measuring. Now, this is the piece of cardboard that I'm going to use when I make my ramp. I'm going to show you some tools that you can use to measure and some different ways to measure as you make your ramp. Let's talk about some tools that you can use to measure with. This first tool is a ruler. You might have used this at school, or you might even have a version of this at home. Now, this is a yardstick, which is just a bigger version of a ruler. So it allows you to measure things that are a little bit bigger than just the ruler. Now, this other measuring tool that I have is called a tape measure. And it's great because it's nice and long and it's flexible, so you can measure around things. Because you're scientists, it's important to be precise with your measurements. So be sure to measure from one end of an object to the other, like this. What if you don't have one of those measuring tools that I just mentioned? That's okay. That's the cool thing about measuring. You can use non-standard items around your house like a pencil or even a paper clip to do your measuring. Who knew that those could be measuring tools? When you're measuring with one of these non-standard kinds of tools, make sure that when you're moving your object, you move it from end to end with no gaps and no overlaps so that you get a nice, precise measurement like we talked about before. When you do measure with a non-standard object and you go to record your data, you can say things like, "My rover traveled 3 pencils," or "My ramp was 15 paper clips long." You also have 2 handy measuring tools right on your body. Yep, your hands. You can use your hands to measure. But one really important thing if you decide to do that, if you use your hand and I use my hand, we're going to get a different measurement because our hands are different sizes. So, whosever hand you start with, use that hand the whole time so that your measurements will be precise. In addition to taking measurements when you're completing your rover and your ramp projects, you're also going to use some math problem-solving skills. Now, scientists like to draw pictures to solve problems. They can write number sentences to solve problems. And scientists love to make tables when they're solving problems. We can use this math problem as an example of our problem-solving skills. When I was looking for something to measure with, I found 3 boxes with 4 blocks in each box. How many blocks do I have altogether? Well, let's use our 3 different ways to solve this problem. The first way we'll solve this problem is by drawing a picture. So, I draw box number 1, box number 2, and box number 3. And then I put my 4 blocks in each box. Then I go back and I count my blocks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I have 12 blocks all together that I can use to measure with. Or I can use a number sentence to solve my problem. I look at my blocks in the first box. I have 4 blocks, so I write my 4. plus the 4 blocks in the second box, plus the 4 blocks in the third box. Now, I like to go back and count my blocks just so that I can be sure. That really helps me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Look at that. 12 blocks that I can use to measure with. Same answer, but we did it 2 different ways. The third way we'll solve this problem is by using a table. Scientists love to use tables. So this is what my table looks like. And in this column, I write the number of boxes. Box number 1, box number 2, and box number 3. Then I go back and I'm going to start counting my blocks to add that number into my table, but we're going to do it a little differently. We're going to count on, and I'll show you how that works when we get there. So in box number 1, let's count our blocks. 1, 2, 3, 4. Box number 1, let's put our number 4. Now we count on. We were at 4 blocks, so let's count on. 5, 6, 7, 8. So after box number 2, we now have 8 blocks. Let's count on one more time. We were at 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So in all 3 boxes, we have 12 blocks. You got the same answer from doing your problem 3 different ways. That's pretty cool. Scientists solve problems, and math is the language that they use to do it. So get ready, scientists. Let's do some math, solve some problems, and have fun.
To download the free lesson plans to be used with this program, visit us online at wqed.org/SOS. To request a hard copy of the lesson plans, please contact your local school district. Funding for this program is provided by the Pennsylvania Department of Education for Learning at Home.